Good evening and welcome to Poems On. I'm Al Basil, and this is the fifth show in the fourth season. And our theme for tonight is new work. We've done a couple of other new work shows, and there will be more to come. Our guest tonight, the new guest, is Bob Moore, and the returning guest, a veteran, is Ned Balbo. Good evening, you guys.
Evening. Good to see you. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
pleasure to see you. Nice to
Yeah,
talk to you.
Thank you.
Bob.
So, as we know, I usually kick things off by inviting the new guest to strut his stuff first. So, what do you have for us, Bob?
I'd like to start off with a poem, which was really, I think it's more of a setting in the tail end of summer, but not quite a spring poem, but there may be some connections. It's called The Meadow, and there is an epigram or epigraph. It's by Emily Dickinson. To make a prairie, it takes a clover and one bee. And the poem goes like this. By fall, the goldenrod is rich in blooming uncut fields. Its yellow gold ignites as if a switch is flipped. The sweeping greens, the mellow grasses stand in contrast. Bend their heads a little wilder. Let the daylight warm their seeds. End up amber, riper, florets set above each blade. The low-cut run of pasture near the road gives rise to blooms of chicory blue with sunburst centers, daisies with their eyes of orange, yellow toadflax wearing dragon faces, clover free to feed a passing bee. Their pairing is a boost to both the sea of unseen gases and the dirt enriched by nodules in the root. Their intermingling roles convert their needs into a shared pursuit.
Thank you.
Yep.
A lot of music in there.
Lovely poem, Bob.
Oh, thanks.
Good
Thank
for
you.
any season, spring, summer, you name it.
There you go. Yeah, the story continues, right? Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
good to hear you read it because, as I say, there's a lot of music in it, and the way you paired up vowel sounds and particularly the soft consonant sounds, the R sounds and the B sounds, which is the soft plosive sounds.
mhm.
Um, I was really struck by that when I heard you read it. I saw it on the page, but and you read it very evenly. And when you do that, the texture of the language for for me is easier to it is easier to hear. Because you're not dramatizing. So you're stringing the words out, and they're modulated in such a way that I hear their sound and the texture of their sound. And for me, that's very appropriate for what you're describing, um, because it's so. I mean, you really, I guess you know this stuff. What is yellow toad flax?
Well, good for you. It's the wild version of kind of miniature wild version of snapdragons, and
Really?
they're wild snapdragons, and that's just their name, yellow toad flax, and they do look like snapdragons, and you can take your thumb and index and go down, and you can pinch
Like you
them a
can
little
with
bit.
snapdragons?
Yeah, right. And but they grow wild, typically on roadsides and in fields too. But they're common along roadsides that are uncut. Yeah. And,
So for those of us that have no clue what landscape you're describing, where were you inspired by this scene?
yeah, thank you very much. Yeah. So this is a kind of a story I had few summers ago. I had a little bit of an emergency happening in one of our relatives. Well, one of my brothers was in need of some help, and so I got in the car and I was headed, and it was, he needed emotional help support, and so he lived in Pennsylvania, he lives in the Valley Forge area, and so I got in a car and I've got a lot on my mind. I've got him on my mind, and so on. And so I'm driving headed down toward Amesbury, and there's a couple of lovely fields. Trying to think of the name of the road, but there is a Merrimack, Massachusetts, and it's just north of the river, right next to Amesbury. And as you get up to the a ridge there, just before you work your way down to 495, there's some lovely, lovely uncut fields there, meadows. So one of them was a meadow that was sitting at the top of the ridge, and I just started to pierce the, or just I don't know, just try to be wowed by what I was seeing, the images, the types of species that were growing that time of the year, and Queen Anne's lace and the things that are starting to show their beautiful, fall glory, and trying to capture all of that. Um, and so, I know you're not supposed to do this, but um, I probably pulled off and started writing some stuff down. But sometimes I write in the car too, and I know you're not supposed to do that. And if we're on Zoom, don't do that. Okay, do not write in the car by hand. But unfortunately, I do that sometimes just to jot some ideas down. And then when I got down, I stayed with my brother John. It takes about 7 hours to get down there, and he lives right on the outskirts of Valley Forge State Park, well, National Park. He lives in Malvern, Pennsylvania, which is just west of Valley Forge, King of Prussia. And um, I was also driving along a road which leads down to a covered bridge, which is in the national park. And on the south side of the road, I'm also seeing these beautiful fields happening, in the autumn, and noticing yellow-toed flax, noticing these other things, the chicory blue that's growing, wild along the road. So the poem is really a combination of two meadows or two
Huh.
fields. It's
Wow.
one from Amesbury or one from Merrimack, and also one from
Well,
Pennsylvania.
I'm since you saw all these things while driving past them, I'm
Yeah.
impressed that you could identify all of this
Well, I kind of
flora.
thank you. I kind of doubled back because I actually may have taken a bike along the Valley Forge Park, or I did pull over. I can't exactly remember what, but I did. I have to just say, because we're, our family, this was kind of a serious family trouble. And I was doing this as a balm to, to try to, engage with the beauty
That makes
of
sense.
what I was saying, to try to just use it as a little bit of a medicine to work help us sort of work through the things
Sure.
we're working through. And
Well, it has
so
that effect for the reader too.
right.
You
We do
So
know.
need to do that. I know Jane and I take our
yeah,
walks in local parks and arboretums and nature areas
yeah,
just to kind of clear our heads and try to get some kind of emotional equilibrium back. So, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So anyway, so I thought I would be trying to get a little bit of the detail of what I was seeing, and just try to incorporate. I wanted to try to also tap into the details of color, even though the color wasn't necessarily prominent, but it was important. Sort of as a
Yeah.
juxtaposition.
I mean,
Of,
to me, this is very rich. But I have to say, I could have been in the same settings
right.
and
Yeah.
been impressed by what I saw, but I wouldn't have been able to name everything
Yeah.
and make it. I mean, clearly you have, you know, you have the language to accompany
Mhm.
the landscape, and so that's what's going on here. I couldn't have done this, so it's great to see it done. Um, yeah. Well,
Um,
and I wanted to get to this because all the poems that you're going to read have this natural, nature's component to them. And I'll ask you something about that after we've heard a couple more, because
sure.
we'll have a better idea of what I'm talking about by then. So, all right, thanks. Let's
Thank
let's
you.
go to you, Ned, and where are you going to take us?
Sure. Well, since you were talking about late summer, Bob, I'll open with a firefly or lightning bug.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you are indeed a fly of fire, impossibly incandescent, yet alive? Why don't high branches kindled turn to flame when you alight? But if, instead, it's lightning that you hold pulsing inside yourself, impatient to glow some catalyst's arrival will ignite, why don't you strike? Perhaps it's fire and lightning you contain, those summer nights when set loose after rain, you flash among the dark trees passing by, winged star that flies.
Yeah. Um,
Sweet. That's beautiful. Beautiful poem.
those are good questions too. Um, by the way, that David Mason's new book is called Cold Fire.
Yeah, you're a wonderful poet.
Yeah,
I,
and
I wrote about Pacific Light, his next to most recent book a while back, and I was just floored by poem after poem.
yeah. Well, Cold Fire has a specific meaning in Tasmania, um, but also the cold fire is a way of describing what's going on in the lightning bugs and and I mean that's the interior fire. Do you know Duke Ellington's tune "Lightning Bugs and Frogs"?
No.
I don't, not offhand. I've certainly heard the Mills Brothers sing "Glowworm."
Well, "Glowworm" is great. That's a Johnny Mercer lyric. That's a brilliant lyric, and I was reminded of it in the early part of your poem because you use the word incandescent, and uh, Mercer has "glow like an incandescent wire" is
Right.
one of his lines. So yeah, I have a poem about the same phenomenon that took place in upstate New York when I was playing a gig at a motel of all places right near the Canadian border in upstate New York. And after we did the gig, we were staying in the motel. It was one of those motels where every room had the name of a different country. So it's like I'm staying in Norway tonight, and
Right, right.
you'd go in there and there'd be like something on the wall that was
Croatia.
that was Norwegian, or whatever. Anyway, we finished the gig and it was late in the night, and I went out back of my room into the land that stretched out away from the highway because it was full of fireflies. It was and I walked into this giant globe of fireflies, and so that's what your poem reminded me of that, of how it's not about heat. It's about light, but it's not about heat.
Mm.
So yeah, wow.
I love
Now,
Firefly poems. Jane has a few great ones as well, and including one in her forthcoming book where she imagines herself a tree covered with fireflies, among other things. The book is going to be called Luminous Crown when it comes out in the fall.
super.
That's poet
What
Jane Satterfield.
when, what month is it going to come out?
I think it's uncertain right now, but it's pretty late in the proof stage and the coverage stage. So my take would be it's going to be ready maybe in a month. And so then it's a question of when they want to release it and get it all printed up. So I think by the end of the summer, it'll be around. It won the
Okay,
T prize for the WordWorks Press.
I'm going to ask you to remind me when um, so that I can have her on and it'll be there.
That'd be great.
Great.
Yeah, I would enjoy that. So was there a particular inspiration about the fireflies and lightning bugs that engendered this poem? Were you around? I mean, in my case, I was I was surrounded by them, so I had to write about them eventually. Do you
Well,
remember what?
we follow the fireflies every summer, and we try to monitor their waves of density and fertility in the times when there are fewer than we wish. They come through here in Riders Forge, Maryland, part of Baltimore, obviously every year. That particular poem, we were both staying at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, so we were both writing Firefly poems. I have some other
Wow,
ones that have, appeared in print and some not. So it's, yes, we were surrounded by them. And at the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, when you're, there's not a lot of light that's polluting the night. So
so
you
you
really
can
see the
see them.
stars. They're very beautiful, very bright. You have a true night sky, and you have dark trees. And when the fireflies come out in swarms in that kind of natural area in the Blue Mountains, they're like constellations of their own against the trees. So it's a very
Sure.
beautiful phenomenon.
Well, poets be poets be like that. They get inspired by that kind of thing. That's super. Wow. Um, well, as often happens in these shows, I find myself either not unwilling, but generally unable to follow in the same vein that the openers have elected to follow. So I could have read my Firefly poem, but that's a very old one, and this is new work. So instead, I'm going to read something musical because there are a couple of musically related poems in my group, and um, I think one or both of you have something that's musically related, right?
Oh
Don't
yeah.
you?
I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
So good.
Yep.
This one's called "A Pure Tone," and it was inspired, although it was written decades later, but it was inspired by my seeing Andres Segovia give a solo recital at Boston Symphony Hall in 1967, which is quite a while ago. It had to be a while ago because although Segovia lived to be 91, I think, um, he's been gone a long time. So
That's the
this is
same time I first saw him because I started taking guitar lessons at 5, and my teacher wanted me to see him
no,
play,
no
which for
kidding.
a little kid who's like 6 or 7 years old, that I did not connect to it, but I was fascinated by it. He was on Channel 13 in New York, which was educational television at the time.
Sure.
And so my mom and I sat down and watched Andre Segovia, and I
It's
always remember
8:30.
that because of his enthusiasm.
Wow. Well, then this will be, although you didn't experience it quite the same way I did. I was 19. So, so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, well, I've stolen a lot of recordings from the Internet Archive in recent years, so I can enjoy it now.
sure, sure.
More
Well,
mature
this
perspective.
this was what struck me from seeing him live. A pure
Absolutely.
tone. When the tale is told that Buddy Bolden could be heard across Lake Pontchartrain, I readily believe it, not because all sound carries better over water, but because it tells me that his tone was pure. And I know from experience the truth of this. Although Symphony Hall is prized for its acoustics, every sound, though treated well, is treated differently. And while I found my seat was up against the back wall of the room, deep underneath the overhanging balcony, the stage so far away, I wasn't disappointed. I knew there were no bad seats in the house. But since I had to strain my eyes to see the portly figure of Segovia enter from the wings, guitar in hand, be seated on a lone chair, place his foot upon the little box before him, settle his instrument into his close embrace, and play his first clear notes, I didn't know how they could leap from silence at my ear, their secrets told in utter confidence, distinct and present, meant only for me. My distance to him disappeared at once, as though we were in the confessional. It was his tone that made this so finely wrought at his hands, a lifetime's worth of purpose. It is the daily humbling, the care taken in layering of will that grows your tone, as personal as heartbeat, breath. A pure tone is your first and final truth.
That's beautiful, Al.
Mm.
And it really does capture just the sound of his tone as well. Those delicate fingers and the strokes that sound almost like they've just issued from the guitar by themselves.
Mm.
It sounded like he was sitting next to me.
Mm.
And I was as far away physically in that room as I could be. That's the acoustics of the hall, partly. But as I say in the poem, it's a pure tone carries. And of course, the bit at the beginning about Buddy Bolden, for those people who are jazz fans, is Buddy Bolden is the legendary, sort of first great jazz man, great jazz trumpet player. And supposedly he would open a window and stick his horn out the window and play, and he could be heard.
Good.
Well, sound does carry over water, but
Across the lake, and that's a big lake.
it is a big lake.
Lake.
Anyway, that may or may not be true, but I was just so taken with what this. I had never experienced that
Mm-hmm.
that acoustical phenomenon
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
before in my life. I expected that. I mean, if he had talked to the audience from the stage, I would hardly have heard him. So I expected that the sound would be appropriately small, but it wasn't.
How about that? It's as if there was no diminishment in the tone, the sound. It just carried, and the volume was
Exactly. The energy of it.
Yeah.
It was like light. It propagates, and it's still light.
Same intensity. Yeah. Sure.
It doesn't get dimmer just because there's a distance that it has to cross to reach you. And of course, then I spend every day of my life packing and refining, clarifying and purifying my own tone on my instrument, on the cornet.
Sure.
Because that's what the daily humbling is about. And Bob, you must play every day, right?
It comes and goes, but I do. I try to anyway. But I'll take a day or two off. But I played today only because got together with some friends for a kind of a songwriting circle kind of thing. But
well, string instruments are a little more forgiving. I know that there's a story that Mingus tells in his autobiography, although the editors cut out an awful lot of the stuff he wrote about music and left in a lot of stuff about whores in Tijuana, because I guess they thought they would sell more books that way. But Mingus talks about how he might not touch the bass for a couple of weeks, and then he'd get called to go on a gig, and he would play. He could play it, but of course his calluses had softened, and so his fingers would be bleeding by the end of the night.
Sure.
But you can do that if you're a string player. You can't do that if you're a brass player, because your muscles will just.
These lips,
the air will just come out at the corners of your mouth, and you won't make a sound.
Right.
So I'm religious in my daily practice, but it's not out of any virtue. It's out of necessity.
Yeah. I was reminded. This poem reminds me a little bit of, or especially your last stanza reminds me of Miles' quote. Said something like, "Man, sometimes it takes you a long time to sound like yourself."
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true. I mean, I've learned this working on improvising for 50, 60 years. Part of it is learning to sound like yourself with your tone. And then the other part is learning to sound like yourself as a thinking, feeling player.
As a musician. Yeah.
Because your identity, it's not any different than how long it takes us to find our voice as poets. The first thing that you wrote doesn't sound like you sound now. So these are pretty basic truths. I'm sorry, what was that?
I think we'd all agree on that.
Yeah. Takes a long time to become yourself.
Find a voice, sure. Or to find out conveying what you want to convey, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Miles didn't pull any punches, but practically everything he said was true. Yeah. So
I really enjoy the line, and my distance to him disappeared at once. That just kind of captured all of a sudden. There is no distance,
It
between.
was shocking. It was literally like I heard all of a sudden there's a sound here in next to my head
Yeah, yeah,
coming in my ear. And there's this little rotund guy way over there.
yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was extraordinary.
Wish I would experience him. I know that he inspired a lot of guitar players when he was playing live or seeing him on television. I know there's a
Oh yeah.
guitar player that was he was from Pennsylvania originally, but he decided to move to New Hampshire. A guy named Ed Gerhard, and his Edward Gerhard he goes by, and that was his first inspiration. That's why he decided to play the guitar, was because of what he had seen on. I think we saw a program on PBS. So.
Yeah, he had great personal magnetism in performance. And then of course he also was the cause of an entire repertoire being either written for him or transcribed for him. Or I mean he commissioned a lot of works. I mean every composer around at the time that wanted to write for the guitar would write a piece for him and hope that he would play it. And so yeah, he's really he holds a place similar to Pablo Casals in terms of rehabilitating an instrument that up until them was not taken seriously as a classical instrument, really. Um, and so if you're old enough, you were around at the tail end of the lives of those people. And I'm older than you guys, so I get to be lucky.
You look younger. You look younger, man. I mean, whatever you're doing well. Keep doing it.
Well, shh, shh, shh.
Okay.
Don't tell my knees.
All
Uh,
right. All right. I won't tell them.
let them sleep.
All
Anyway, so we begin again. What's your number two, Bob?
right. Let's see if I can find. Be there in a minute. Let's see. I guess I'll do this poem. It's called Wood Thrush. It was a poem that was written. I won't say too much about it, but we brought my parents up here about 5 years ago, and eventually they settled into a nursing home, long-term care place in Fremont. And this is a poem that was inspired while I was visiting my father. We actually used to get a chance to go outside sometimes. So it's called Wood Thrush. We sit outside, and all that we can hear is music drifting in the summer air. I ask my father if he thinks the song is traceable. He knows it is a bird's, but in his memory cannot find the words. The clouds are gliding like an endless prayer. They freewheel like the bird's song in the woods. He says, I'll bet its song will last all day. Some clouds he notices appear like hands and flowing hair before they float away. And in the woods, he points now to a tree. He says, its shape and all that I can see is perfect from its trunk up to its crown. And birds fly toward a feeder standing near a window where a one-floor building stands. The thrush's song ascends and then winds down. Its soothing music seems to have the goods on time, and for a moment, nothing's wrong.
Wow, did he? Is that what he said about the tree?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah,
Wow.
and he was right. I mean, if you looked at what he could see, yes, yeah. There were a number of beautiful trees in the back beyond the neighboring lawn area or back area behind the building, and then there was a forest, and of course that's where the thrush's song was coming from. But aside from the music, there was also this beautiful kind of just natural canopy of woods there, or forest of woods, and yeah, there was some other stuff going on. The clouds were particularly delicate that day too, and they were, and it was a kind of a dreamy day. and so there's some different things going on. So,
Well, I want to say that this is a quote from Blake, from William Blake, and maybe it's by somebody else. But the quote is, "As a man is, so he sees." Um, the tree that to one man is, is a glorious thing rising up to heaven is to another man just some brown thing in the way.
yeah, yeah.
Well, that's definitely not how it comes across in your poem. It has that sense of sacredness of the moment, where the father and the son and the tree and the bird are kind of all joined in a kind of connection. I think that really came across just beautifully.
Well, thanks. It was just good because he seemed for his mood was he was in a good mood, very sort of a grateful mood, and I think he was maybe just in a receptive mood that day, so that these things could be impactful to him, or we could have a talk about them anyway. So, yeah.
Mm. But I mean, just not just what he was able to see, but the way that he talked about it.
Yeah.
I'll bet his song will last all. I mean, again, something that you hear that lasts all day might be something that you're looking forward to experiencing, or it might be something that just drives you crazy.
Yeah, sure.
What does it mean for something to last all day? It depends on how you live within that day. So, yeah, I agree with Ned. I mean, this is integrated. This is nature and familial blood and human perception and bird song integrated in a way that makes you realize that they belong together because they're all part of the natural world. We don't often see ourselves as being in the natural world. We see ourselves in we see it as something outside of ourselves.
Maybe
But
as witnesses or something.
yeah, but I mean, we are participants, and every element in this poem is a participant. So yeah, it's got a terrific unity. Wow. Yeah, and there's it kind of gestures to rhyme, but it doesn't keep a tight scheme.
No.
So how did you? Was that something you were aware of, or just come out this way, or because there are some lines that do rhyme?
Yeah, there's no real form here. I think I was maybe just thinking of a couple of Frost poems. I can't think of one in particular, but he tended to at least pay a little bit of attention to end rhymes, and then if he ended with one line with a particular sound, that maybe you'd find at least one match of a rhyme somewhere down.
Yeah. Well, the
Some of
meter is very
the
even.
yeah,
So I mean, there is that. There's that. That's the form.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was
yeah.
anyway. It would. I think if I was to find, like, there would be maybe a word that would rhyme with here. There may be a word that would rhyme with there. I think was prayer, and I think there's another word that would rhyme with woods, which is goods. So
Yeah. You
there
got here and near.
yeah, there are couplets there. Yeah, but
It's just farther down.
yeah, they're three and four. They're kind of spread all over.
It's interesting. Words and woods and goods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but it's not strict for sure. Yeah, it's pretty random.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it could be reworked, but I don't know. Maybe I'll leave it as is.
No, I like it the way it is. I mean, it's not necessarily a conforming. Conforming is not a virtue in itself.
Yeah, yeah, I just yeah, it's
You know what I'm saying? It's like
yeah,
it's what you're trying to express
yeah,
has got to take the lead, and then if you can do that within a form without calling attention to it being in the form,
yeah,
so much the better. But we've all experienced poems that where the matter was kind of squeezed to death
by the form,
by the dutiful
driven by.
following of the recipe.
Or
You know,
written them.
surely not present company.
Oh, never.
After you get really bogged down with this stuff, and sometimes it just naturally works, which is a blessing. It's a grace, when that happens. But sometimes it doesn't, and then you just say, okay, what do I have here? Can this still work? So,
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
and so yeah, I've been less apt to really drill myself and drive myself crazy for a year or 2 years now. Some people will do that, and God bless them for doing it because
Yeah, I know. Well, we experience that every month.
yeah, right,
Well, also for people who can't see this on the page, it's a block. It's not broken into stanzas.
right, yeah.
It's it could be a paragraph. I mean, it's not, but it's a block, and not all the poems that you're going to read are like that. Some of them are stanzaic. So
Right.
I just want to make that distinction for people who don't or aren't in a position to see that. So excellent. Yeah, moving along. What's your next offering going to be, Ned?
I'm going to read a poem called Metaphors for Timbal Music. So we continue with the theme of like winged song, in this case,
Yes.
insects. And of course, I should mention that timbals are the abdominal membranes that allow male cicadas to sing. I'm quite a fan of the periodic cicadas that visit us here in Maryland every 17 years. So I'm hoping to stick around long enough for the next visitation. So we'll see if I do. I actually will hold this up to the screen because, oh, maybe it won't work. Oh, I see. Maybe
You
it
got
has
to
to be.
get it closer. You got to
All
get
right.
in very close.
No. You know what? I think it's some sort of. I won't bother with it anymore. You can visit actually the website of the journal Interim, where the poem is lodged right now. It's from a manuscript I've been sending around, and it can be read three different ways. I'm only going to read them two ways because I think, three is just overkill and not necessary. But maybe that'll be fun to kind of see how it works. I thought if I could show it to you, you'd say like, "Oh, I see exactly how that works," but it looks like it's just too blurry. And I don't know whether the background blurring is affecting my attempt to get it close for you to
Well,
see.
hang on, because I think I can share it.
If you want to, and there's time, sure.
Why not?
As long as it's not a complicated process that's going to cause us all to become restless and nervous while we wait.
That's gonna be up to
Maybe I'm
you.
talking about myself.
I know that's that's.
Hey,
Well, hang on, because I know I have. All right, here we are.
Ned, while he's doing that, what was the title of Jane's new book, Luminous
It's called Luminous Crown.
Luminous Crown?
Thank you for asking, Bob.
Thanks.
Luminous
Sure.
Crown.
Thank you.
And it's on the WordWorks Press, and it's the 10th Gate Prize winner for, I guess, 2026.
Did you say 10 gate? I'm sorry.
10th Gate, it's one of the prizes that the WordWorks Press offers.
Great, thank you.
I've got this.
Oh my God. Al Basil has started screen sharing, they tell me here. There it is. So you can see it, everybody. And I will read it then. And hopefully the magic won't be lost. I'm thinking of the magic of the cicadas, not so much the poem. Metaphors for timbal music. The banging of 10 billion tambourines. What does it mean? Infinite shriek careening past a storm. What's taking form? 10,000 theremins make their escape by changing shape. Waves booming, multitracked to the extreme, a lucid dream. Medieval chant uncertain of its pitch, wavering, rich. Light aircraft engines idling over Rome. We're almost home. The rattling of the D train far away. We cannot stay. An endless agonizing car alarm, the cause of harm. Foo Fighters glimpsed by pilots lost in time. History rhymes. 6 billion laptop coolers churning dread. How many dead? The same old treetop shriek across 10 miles, despite denials, a missile's everlasting flight before a call to war. In silent rooms, the pulsing of our blood, it does no good. And alien spacecrafts hum and hovering, discovering the drone that drops deliveries from its claw. Nobody saw. All reasons that we hear or cannot hear what's drawing near, the gorgeous music that will leave us deaf. Praise what is left.
Mm.
So I'll just read the right hand short line column too. What does it mean? What's taking form by changing shape? A lucid dream? Wavering, rich, we're almost home. We cannot stay the cause of harm. History rhymes. How many dead? Despite denials, a call to war. It does no good discovering. Nobody saw what's drawing near. Praise what is left.
Wow.
That's an intense poem. That's excellent.
And so are the cicadas when they come.
Yeah.
It's an amazing phenomenon, and I know that the habitats that they inhabit have been shrinking and diminishing over the years. And here we had quite a strong uprising, quite literally. And so you'd see birds catch them out of the air, and you'd sweep them after they died. If they were not caught by birds, their carcasses were like, leaves on the concrete when you swept them away at the end of the season. It was about 3 weeks, May into June. And if you like their song, which I do, it's a beautiful experience. I recorded it and I've worked with it musically as well. And they land on you and they crawl up your arm and you can see them mate, which they are doing. That's why they're out there and singing away. So yeah, it's a magical experience. I find it.
When were they last in evidence?
Well, there are different broods around the nation. You can actually look up a map online and kind of see where the brood nearest you is located. Our brood is, I think, I want to say 13, and I think it is 2021. It was when it was here. I think it was 1987, 2004, 2021, and I think
Wow.
the next time that'd be 17 years later. Is that 2038 maybe? And so, yeah, we're waiting for 2038.
That's that.
Well, the reason I ask is that I have a very vivid memory of one summer during my childhood
Hmm.
when the cicadas came.
Hmm.
And so I know the sound. And
There's several different sounds. I mean, there's like a screaming sound, and there's like three different types of what's called the magicicada. They have full Latin names. I can't remember the second half of each of the three, but their calls are very distinct. Some sound like rattling, some sound like screaming. And actually, I have a poem in an old Birmingham Poetry Review, which includes a kind of code, a mnemonic trick to remember their voices. Which, because I don't have it in front of me right now, I can't remember it. But when I want to know, I can just look at my poem and read it and say, "Oh, that's right. This species has that call, and this species has this other call." Some of
well,
them have a
do
call that goes kind of like that, but incredibly loud. And it's really deafening, but beautiful in its way.
do they leave sort of shells behind, or do
Yes,
they?
yes, they crawl up as nymphs, and they look like brown, tiny little brown critters, and they climb up wood, and then their shells split, and when they emerge, they're white. And all three types, although they have slightly different body shapes and different calls, the periodic cicadas, not the annual ones, end up they're black and they're red-eyed and very distinct, and they have kind of goldish wings.
So I have a memory of these shells on the barks of trees
Yeah,
just outside of my house. I mean, I lived in a park. I grew up in a park.
yeah,
So there were giant pine trees on the driveway that led to our house.
yeah.
And I remember going out in the summer, and there were all of these brown split body shells
Yeah,
sticking to the trees.
exactly. That's
But
what
I
exactly what you
don't
find.
remember seeing that at any other time. So I might have not been living there 17 or however many years it took.
Some broods are 13, some broods are 17. Just
Fascinating.
Google them up, a periodic cicada, and you can find maps to the
Wow.
area near you. It's really interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, now I'm keen to experience it again, but I guess I'll have to. I've never seen any around here.
Go to YouTube, but there's a lot of people that have filmed it and recorded it, so you
Yeah, no
can
doubt.
vicariously.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, great. So, so what are you? I had to look up Foo Fighters because I knew you weren't only referencing David Grohl's rock band.
Right, a little bit of playful pun there, but yeah,
Because
go ahead.
yeah, no, tell. I mean, I know what I found, but why don't you tell us?
Yeah, that isn't that one of the terms for the ships that they would see that were actually UFOs?
Oh,
Well, that's one way to put it. The term as that I found when I looked it up was during World War II, pilots saw these balls of light
Yes,
or balls of fire,
all right.
yes,
and they referred to them as Foo Fighters.
Wow.
right,
Wow.
And then, because the term UFO, I guess, was only coming into use at
right.
that
It
point.
hadn't yet come into use.
Yeah, so UFO got you know transliterated into Foo, but they were Foo Fighters. And then when David Grohl came up with his band, he picked that name because he wanted to make it sound like they had a full band instead of just three guys.
There you go.
But
That's a good
but
band.
the war imagery that you bring in, because there's quite a, and then the UFO imagery is kind of interesting, and so you see a connection to the phenomenon of the cicadas themselves. Is that what's happening there?
Well, it's by association and by sound. I mean, as you listen to the different types of cicada calls at the height of their visitation, they do sound like they could be UFOs. The sound of a cicada brood at the height of its visit sounds a lot like the sound of a UFO in almost any 1950s science
It's
fiction
9 o'clock.
that you hear.
No kidding.
Absolutely, check it out and compare. And of course, the sound of drones and planes that we hear have something in common with the sounds of cicadas as well.
Yeah.
Again, depending on the pitch. And obviously, these are metaphors for timbal music. So, these are metaphors. I think there's something like 17 sets here, which is for the 17 years of the cicada that
Wow.
they spend underground waiting for their moment of glory. And so, yeah, I guess the idea of them swooping and soaring and landing and sometimes being snatched out of the air before your eyes by a bird, that doesn't seem so far off from the battles of artillery in the
Sure.
air. So yeah, I guess those were among the metaphors I was thinking of. Obviously, uh, these days, we're thinking about war a lot because of the Middle East and Iran. And I think, war is always going on. So using war as metaphor for their sounds, or that their sounds would make you think of planes in war, it's not very far from the human experience that we're unfortunately always living with, in
Yep.
one way or another. It's either close by or it's far away, but it always comes round again in the world that we live in.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the cicadas visit, obviously.
Well, no kidding.
Yeah, when you look at the human tragedy, absolutely.
Yeah. But
Wow.
when you read those italicized lines, the shorter lines, it seemed like they had maybe a stronger impact in terms of
Yeah,
the metaphor for war or the
yeah.
metaphor for
I
battle.
tried to do that, hopefully.
Yeah, it came across. It was something. Yeah, it's great.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Bob.
because it was divided from the cicada part of it,
Right.
Yeah.
so it had its own integrity.
Right. I also enjoyed 10,000 Thermins. I really, in terms
Yeah,
of,
there you go. There's the science fiction movie as well.
Yeah, there it is.
yeah.
So is this Is this a not? Excuse me. Is this a nonce form of yours, or has this
Or,
been done before?
well, if it's been done before, I'm not aware of it. But I've always joked around to Jane to say, whenever I work in nonce forms, I don't go around saying, "Oh, I've invented a new form."
Right.
Um,
You
so,
never know.
so yeah, it's a nonce form, and who knows if I'll return to it or anyone else ever will. They have to read it first. That is the first obstacle, isn't it?
Well, you could be like Newton and Leibniz and arrive at the similar destination without being aware that the other is on the same journey.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we think we invented that others have invented before us. And obviously, some of the poems I'll read tonight, I very consciously imitated the work of metaphysical poets and others,
Yeah,
and we'll credit where due.
yeah. You mentioned George Herbert. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, then,
I guess it's your turn now.
yeah, and of course, I have something that is nothing like what we've had so far. Um, but this is what it is. This is it's called Basic Training, and this is an account of part of my experience in the Army of the United States in the summer of 1970 at Fort Leonard Wood, which is uh, Robert Benchley would have said is one of the nicest little plague spots in the Midwest. Uh,
It
not,
follows from the war material in the poem you just heard, so it's the
it
perfect
kind of
follow.
does.
There
Yeah,
is
that's that.
action, yeah.
That's why I'm going next, but it's not much related. Excuse me. Okay, so drill sergeants are memorable. They are paid to be memorable. And I don't know how well they're paid, but they earn whatever they're paid. Basic training. All our basic DIs had a style. The ones who only barked were Johnny One Notes, but Sergeant Bowen struck us as the wise one. He picked his spots and barked for emphasis. I'm not going to tell you, he would say. If you go out by the main gate, north and east for 35 miles, you'll hit Rolla. But I'm not going to tell you how to do that. He was sly, and he was on our side. While other drill instructors in the cadre had hats, sharp-edged and flat-brimmed, all alike, his hat had a gentle upward curve, as though it wore a smile. His face was smooth, unmarked by topical depilatories. His features broad and gentle. He would give advice to make us better men and soldiers. Mid-war, as we were, we had all kinds. Draftees, NGs, and AR enlistees. Some with degrees and some who barely finished 7th grade. One day, he dropped his choicest pearl. Now, men, he said, I did not go to Harvard. I did not go to Yale. I did not go to Princeton or to any of those big so-called executive establishments. But men, I know my job. Some of these men, he said, and nodded toward us in formation, have been to Harvard. Some have been to Yale, and some of them have been to Princeton. Yes, they've learned so much before they come to me. Some of these men, they think that they are smart. And they are smart. Some of these men are so smart, they are smarter than themselves.
That
Great
is a
delivery.
choice pearl.
Great delivery.
I think we all know what he means.
Yes, I think we do.
Mhm.
I'm
Having
not sure
spent some time
everybody
in
in the
academia, having spent
well,
some time in academia in my life,
you
I
got it.
have got a list as long as my arm that fit that description.
There's a lot of people in that formation though that had no idea what he was talking about, unfortunately. But um, he was he was good for us, and he was a little subtle, which most of them were not.
Sounds like he
So
was. And you
yeah,
capture that. I love poems where someone's, human voice kind of brings poetry somehow to the page and to the performance. Um, in a very unforced, natural way. And that's one of the things, like the way you captured the language that he used has that poetic quality within it in the dialogue, which I think is really well done.
thank you. Very very little of it had to be reworked for the meter. I would say 85% to 90% of the quoted lines of his are verbatim.
Kind of
Now
like a
you know because we work with line lengths and meter that you've got some wiggle room in terms of starting starting a quote in the middle of a line and finishing it over the next line and having it fit the meter that way. But literally, I was able to use everything that he said. The only thing that was not literally what he said was what he said was, I did not go to Princeton or any of those big executive institutions. Well, I had to change institutions into establishments
Mhm.
for the meter.
Yeah.
But everything else, that's what he said. It,
So is it kind of like a
That's a
font?
forgivable change, Al. It's okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna arrest you for that, or hold
well,
you.
he could have said it. He could have said it the way I wrote it, but
Sure.
no, I'm not. I'm not apologizing for having to make a change. I'm astonished at the fact that I didn't have to make any other
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like a found poem, a little bit,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, I mean those guys have they have the the native technique of authority. It's like they talk the way they talk. I mean, we all know that English has got a penchant for falling into iams.
Mhm.
I mean, we know that from just the way that we realize sometimes as we're speaking
Yeah.
that we've just said something that was perfectly in meter.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but these homilies that the DIs used to dispense, I'm sure were repeated over and over and over again for every group of new, you know,
Reference. Yeah.
sad sacks that were standing in front of them
Mhm.
every 8 weeks. Um, and boy, I don't, it's kind of like the water went over the pebbles for so long that they became perfectly smooth
Mhm.
Yeah.
because boy, he was smooth. And that was that thing that he does with his S sounds, themselves.
Mhm.
It's exactly the way he said it.
Could you
I,
remind us of the accent? I mean, it's regional accent. What is the accent exactly?
well, Central Missouri, I guess.
Central Missouri?
Does
I
have
mean,
a
that's where we were. I don't know where he
Yeah.
came from.
Yeah.
But he, and I don't know how long he had been at the fort or how all of that affects your accent, but
Well, when
he
you
was
work
the
that
only one.
closely with someone and listen to him yelling and helping you every day, you learn how he speaks and it sticks with you.
Well, with him, he was particularly. He had flair.
Mhm.
He had a pithy way of saying things, and then he had a flair for how he produced them in the mouth.
Mhm.
Not all the DIs had that. They all had something, um, and a lot of them had really interesting rhythms in the way that they cussed.
Mm.
You know, they really they could just roll out the curse words. Um, so I remember that. But this guy he had something. He had a sound. He had a tone. He had a pure tone.
There you go. All right. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let us begin again. Where are you going to take us on this caravanserai?
Okay. Let's see. Just go hunting again here. Be right there.
Are you going to do one of the um, ekphrastic ones?
Let's take a look here. Be right there. Let's see. This one is yeah. It'll be the one that it's called a Sikias.
Got it.
Okay, great.
Hang on. While
I think I'm sure I'm pronouncing it not correctly, but something like that. It's probably a Sikias. Yeah. Yeah. This was an image that was shared at the end of last year through a online journal called Quill and Parchment, and they usually have a ekphrastic uh, prompt or image, and we're just the poet has just asked her to submit a poem that somehow describes the scene, inspired by the scene in some way. My wife and I, just as an aside, my wife and I took a ride to see her sister in San Diego. We took a cross country trip, and on the way back, we visited some national parks, and then after we went to Mesa Verde, we headed south through New Mexico, and we took a wrong turn, and we were headed south. I was originally wanted to get to let's see, not Phoenix, but the capital of New Mexico, Santa Fe, and we took a wrong turn, so we went sort of due south, and we went across these mesas that stretched for a long time. And of course, we were sort of getting low on gas. We were wondering if we were going to run out of gas because there were no gas stations. But the beauty of the mesas and the farming that they were doing there was pretty cool. It was inspiring, and it helped me a little bit in taking this picture and maybe looking into how the farmers in that neck of the woods irrigate their crops during the spring and summer. So that's what this poem was about, or that's what this image evoked for me. In summer, we don't wait for rain to fall. We work as we are able in the heat. By now, we've cut the last of the winter wheat, leave crowns as cover to preserve the soil. No till techniques are used to seed the clay. A network of canals can meet our needs for water from surrounding hills. It feeds the sweet corn, squash, and beans, the summer hay. By fall, we let dust settle on the plows, and when the land is still, as it is now, the mountains work to gather virgin snow. They store what will pour from them when it flows. We farm as we are able when it's warm, and grateful for another winter storm.
Thanks for the sonnet.
That's
Yeah,
lovely.
no trouble. Yeah, yeah. So I did a little bit of work in terms of trying to answer that question about how do they irrigate. We saw a lot of irrigation systems there, but I wasn't exactly sure how they were to network the water, which of course sometimes is in short supply, certain times of the year, and they apparently this method goes back 50, 100, couple hundred years, where uh, farmers know each other from across vast swaths of land there, and they work as a community to build canal networks that actually are fed by mountain snows, and then through damming and a sequence of, I guess, valves or they are able to conserve the water and allow it to flow in uh, at different times, and it's a shared network water system that works despite, it really is a way of working when the weather is not working. So if the weather is dry or for extended droughts, they still have typically an adequate water supply, and of course, water is in very short demand in or it's in high demand but very short supply in New Mexico and Arizona, the Colorado. Of course, they're always, fighting over the water that's available there, and they run into some really serious trouble with the demands of water in that area. But this is one way that they buffer um, their demand for water, and so that image for whatever reason gave me the idea to think that maybe this farm or this particular image would be okay. So anyway, a little bit of backstory.
Thanks, Bob. I like how it's a poem of human ingenuity actually turned toward a constructive purpose, bringing
Yeah.
water, and so many of the poems and so many of the examples of ingenuity that we see, are not for such a pure and constructive purpose. And I think that was one of the things that really came through in the combination of the lyrical and the technological in the way you described it.
Thank you. Yeah. The cool thing about it is it apparently goes back to to tribes or to Native
Yeah,
Americans that actually are, or this was their technique. It came before the invention of some of the equipment that they were using. They were still able to access water as they needed to, and um, so that was kind of cool, and that they were able to work in a cooperative way. So
yeah,
for the greater good of everyone, that actually was bringing in
right.
residual crops rather than pitting one against the other and so on. So,
Well,
That's another
also
thing I was hearing about too.
yeah.
to take the idea that we brought up uh, with your last poem, the idea of the integration of man and nature, the personification of the mountains in the third stanza here. The mountains work to gather virgin snow. They store what will pour from them when it flows. Um, there's this kind of cooperation,
Mhm.
not only going from man to nature, but from nature coming back, which is uh, it's the kind of thing that's always happening, but it's not always so clear how it's related to an outcome as it is here. And also for me, the line by fall, we let dust settle on the plows. That's I really like that as an image
Mhm.
describing the cessation of labor.
Work out to it. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, instead of talking about how their daily job has changed, you
Mhm.
just give us an image of a plow with dust on it.
Mhm.
And that's
That's enough. Huh? Yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think I've heard images of other things collecting dust, but it's usually inside.
Right.
It's like the knickknacks on the shelf
Right.
collecting dust.
Mhm.
That's a pretty common image, but I haven't seen it used with a plow that we always think of in
Mhm.
you know in terms of
Mhm.
motion. When does a plow around long enough to gather dust? It's
Yeah.
only at this time of the year.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Apparently,
wow.
there would be a lot of dust that depending on the weather and the amount of moisture in the soil and so on. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing is that there is dust.
Sure.
Yeah. Now again, it's very integrated. It's unified.
Mhm.
Um, and I also like the way that you pick up, but with a variation, your second line and your second line from the end. We work as we are able in the heat. We farm as we are able when it's warm.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's I'm not sure, to what degree they do what they can do when they're able to do it, I guess, Right. And,
yeah. Well, again, that's that's a true statement, but the way that it's put also has value in poetic terms.
mm,
So you get two for the price of one, which is always nice.
oh,
It's kind of why we do this stuff.
all right.
Whenever I'm doing running online classes, I'm always going, it's poetry. You want the words to do as many jobs as you can make them do.
That's true.
They
That is
can,
true. Yeah.
sometimes they just kind of look at me and say, no, it's not just what they mean. How do they sound? How do they look? How do they get along with their neighbors? Um,
All of those things. Yeah, sure.
yeah, all sure. What else can they stand for? So yeah, and then it's a perfectly regular sonnet. Um, even
It's
I
a,
mean, you got a couple of slant rhymes.
right.
That's as unconventional as it gets, and of course nowadays that's not unconventional.
I think Emily Dickinson will be okay with it. Yeah, she
Yeah,
might.
I think she probably would. Very,
God
very good. All right,
bless her.
moving right. Yeah, tell it slant.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Balbo.
Well, we're talking so much about dust and sonnets. I'll read a sonnet that is called A Shimmer of Dust and Starlight. And the epigraph to it is a historical sonnet. Jailed by Richard III, Sir Henry Wyatt. This is circa, he lived 1460 to 1537, father of the poet Thomas Wyatt, was saved from starvation by the cat who visited the Tower of London cell with the spoils of her hunt, reportedly the local pigeons, so legend says.
Well,
So you can believe that if you want to. I want to, but I recognize that legend is legend. But this supposedly is how Henry Wyatt survived in the Tower of London. The cat brought the remains of his hunt to his cell. And this is A Shimmer of Dust and Starlight. Little is known of Henry Wyatt's cat. What's said is probably apocryphal. Like other myths, a knight aristocrat might gather after 2 years in a cell, starvation days, and sessions on the rack. True to his oath, set free and welcomed back. Such courage has its costs. We pay in love that hooded falcon fastened to a glove, released to day's last sunlight creeping in. Or else we call on shadows like a ghost, some shimmer of dust and starlight, tattered shape or savior moving close, gray formless vapor carrying its kill, fur edged with frost, to rest on straw beside the paladin.
Mm.
well, what imagery?
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. Gorgeous. Yeah. And
I want to mention that came out in a very nice journal called online journal called a New Verse Review, which younger than us poet Steve Nepper,
Yes.
the VMI, has put together and is becoming a very nice gathering place for folks that are interested in craft and narrative work. So if you don't know the journal, please check it out. New Verse Review online,
Yeah.
editors for a
That's a
fine
great.
poet in
That's
his
a
own
great
right.
plug. They actually printed a review of my last year's book,
mm,
so I can second your motion.
Yeah, I'll be writing some reviews for them in the near future myself.
mm,
Great.
terrific. And the editor's name again was Stephen. Was his first
Steve Nepper, Knepper.
name?
Yes.
I think he's giving a reading actually on May 17th. So although I don't have the information right in front of me, I'm sure that, Googling here or there or visiting the website, there's probably some news or information about it.
Yep.
Great.
Um,
Mm.
so, wow. This is. There are almost horror overtones near the end of this.
Well, certainly
You know,
supernatural.
yeah, um,
But I would love a certain ghost cats to come visit me.
yeah,
I
I
wouldn't
know,
mind it.
I know, I can think of one in particular.
You're right.
Yep. But gray formless vapor carrying its kill, fur edged with frost, to rest on straw beside the paladin.
Mhm.
This has got some weight to it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I love the rhyme shape or and vapor.
Yeah.
yeah,
Poetic.
I think Tim Steele would call that a mosaic rhyme, if I recall from his book.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrific. Yeah.
oh, how does he mean that?
Like two words forming a rhyme with another word that's a single word. What where two words are you
Oh,
know
yeah,
forming the rhyme, so it's shape or and vapor.
Mhm.
yeah, I'm going to do
Commonly
that
done
in.
in lyrics, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I'll be reading one later that
Great.
does that a couple of times.
Mhm.
But I didn't know that he had a term for it. That's a
Yeah,
nice term.
I didn't know the term myself till I ran across it, and I said, "Oh, Tim Steele has a name for this. This is great."
Yeah, nice. Um, Jailed by Richard III. So, what do you recall? What occasioned the birth of this particular work? I mean, how did your mind go back to the
Well,
1300s?
well, um, as you know, my cat Wyatt, who was named
Oh,
Wyatt,
that's the Wyatt. Yes. Shame on me.
was named in the shelter Wyatt, and whose name we did not change, was my pal for many years, and I know a guest on this program in a previous
Yes,
appearance.
he held
And
him up to the camera.
yeah, well, we had to say goodbye to him, and he was a. I have written another poem about him, which is actually in the current Think Journal, but I didn't think I could read that one and not cry. I have
Wow.
sometimes I'll get a little too teary when I read something a little too sad, so I wanted to read one that was a little more distanced and historic. Um, actually, a poet that many of us know was kind enough to write a kind of comforting sonnet of her own and share it with me sort of privately.
It's 9:30.
The voice just came off and said, "It's 9:30."
I don't
But
know why it does that.
and because she had kind of used the Thomas Wyatt poem as the basis, I started thinking, well, I should find a way to do something like this for my Wyatt, as she has done, and wanted to find my own take on it. So Henry Wyatt, and this very coincidental story that I discovered online, I didn't know it existed till I looked around, found it.
Huh.
Said,
Huh.
oh, this is perfect. And now I can talk about my Wyatt in a way that's a little less personal.
Hmm. It's memorable. I guess some things are better now. It would have been harder to stumble across this bit of historical, story before the days of the
The internet,
digi-
yes,
yeah,
there's so much that's wrong online nowadays, and I've written about that as well in many a poem, and probably more to come. Certainly, every day there's not a day where Jane and I don't curse the internet in one way or another,
of course,
social media. But the availability of useful information, unfortunately, beside all kinds of cracked theories and terrible, awful things. But the availability of useful information is a nice thing. And yeah, this was a lovely discovery. And you should look for it yourself because there's a painting of this that was in the family that depicted
the cat
yes,
bringing.
exactly. You can
Oh
find the
my
painting.
goodness!
Yes, you can find the painting online, and it's hilarious.
Wow. Well,
I say hilarious. It's touching also. I mean, hilarious
yeah,
because maybe it beggars belief, but touching because, it's this legend that they've chosen to believe. I mean, you could write another poem or other poems about this and take a very skeptical viewpoint. I was thinking about my Wyatt and dreams where he does come to me, but you could write a poem about how this is some invented family story about the guy that probably was forced to eat rats that he caught on his own in the cell. But so the family needed to believe something. He needed to
Yes,
have a story to tell that would be socially acceptable. And so I
yes.
felt like this legend has an interesting provenance if you think about it, though I didn't want to get into that in this particular poem and probably no future poem of mine, but it certainly wasn't something I didn't think about.
Yeah, but I think the territory that you did explore is I'm glad you I'm glad you went this way.
Mm.
And, yeah, I don't think I want to read the other poem about him catching rats,
No,
but
no, no.
if someone else can write that, I want to read this one and think of my Wyatt and think of him perhaps being visited by a spectral savior.
Mm.
Yes.
Or,
Wow.
or could
Well,
he?
I'm glad. I'm glad. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say, could he be the savior himself? I mean, he could play that role too. With it's possible that he could play the role of saving someone else that's in dire need. But anyway,
Whom might
Saviors
that
in
be?
many forms, absolutely.
a super, a super. We have a dog that thinks reminds me of Underdog a little bit. He thinks he can do anything and everything and attempts to, but he's basically mad, but he does think he can do lots of things, and sometimes he does. I'm not sure if he'd ever come to my rescue, but maybe he would.
Wyatt,
We
Wyatt,
can only hope,
Wyatt
I
was a
guess.
guy that gave a lot of comfort and was very much in the thick of everything. I don't think I'll ever have another cat quite as wonderful. Although I do have a lovely cat now who's lots of fun, named Sully, and is also a gray and white. But in any case, yeah, we could go on and on about Wyatt's adventures, but I think we need to hear something from Al, and we're going to hear
Well, I'm
some.
glad that I'm glad that Wyatt made his appearance
Mm.
Yes,
again in
and
slightly different form. Yeah. Well, again, I can't go all the way back to the 1300s, but I can go back to the 16 and 1700s,
Yeah.
and so I am going to do that. And this is a musical. I particularly wanted to read this poem for musical types, and in Bob's case, in fact, for a plectrist, um, because this is called Lullaby, and it's my reconstruction of something that um, may have happened to Robert de Vizet, who lived from 1655 to 1732, and who was a French lutenist, theorbist, guitarist, and singer who served as musicien ordinaire de la Chambre du Roi at Versailles under Louis XIV. A trusted musician of the royal bedchamber, he performed during the king's formal coucher ceremonies, which is what the king hanging out after dinner,
yeah.
um, and was sometimes summoned afterward to sing and play privately when the insomniac monarch could not sleep. So I got to thinking about what that might mean for the life of Mr. de Vizet. Lullaby. I heard the footsteps in the corridor and knew, before the knock, my task was not completed. Though I'd played and sang him off to drowsiness, the king was not asleep. After the formal coucher, I had climbed the tilting stairs up to my attic room and prepared myself to end the day. I'd poked the embers in the tiny fireplace so they glowed and stored away my loot. But my night, dark and frigid as I knew it was to be, was not yet to begin. My music must resume, this time in private. I'd played my set, the pieces that he liked, familiar but with subtle variations that kept their impact fresh. The ritual concluded, and I'd been dismissed. The courtiers withdrawn, the chamber darkened, and the king left to his solitary journey. One valet de chambre to hold himself discreetly nearby, but out of sight, so sleep would come. But it had not. Pressed by affairs of state or by some ordinary private trouble he shared with any undistinguished peasant, from which his royalty could not protect him, Louis could never find the door of sleep without the guidance of my plaintive voice. The dying fall of lute notes swallowed in the deep calm of his tapestries and carpets. Recalled, I made my way down from the eaves, my cramped room where I had to bow my head, its ill-fit window letting in the cold, the slap of slippers on the bare wood floors, back to that warm, high-ceilinged space where kings could feel protected, safe, before their dreams devoured or confirmed what they imagined. Now I must bring him to that other world. The valet had set out the chair for me a few feet from the bed and stood outside the chamber door where he would not intrude but could hear everything, just steps away. The king, his voice subdued and personal, yet not familiar, asked politely for his favorite saraband, which often worked its magic when he found himself unsettled. I played it, with its melody familiar, and in its repetition I included such ornaments as varied it, yet kept it close to the first strain which satisfied. My notes were soft, absorbed in the surrounding silence as I slowed the tempo, probing deeper in the music's melancholy, repeating what it seemed to be confiding. But even as I found myself drawn in, my mood was tempered by the slip of silk on Flanders linen, vexed intake of breath, and shifting of position in the bed. I shifted too to other pieces which had worked before, employing all my art. I sang the choicest lyrics then, ones which were all but guaranteed to soothe, but all to no avail. Caught in the grip of some disturbance fiercer than before, his mind and body at its withheld mercy, Louis was no closer to relief. At last, he turned to me and simply asked, his voice chastened by struggle, in a tone far from command, that I play something new. I reached for a note and plucked it from the air, and in the notes that followed it, I followed close behind each one that came to me, like a succession of the friends that I'd lost touch with in my life. Each one's returning brought a rush of recognition. I never meant to let them slip away. But now I was relieved to have them back, and I resolved to never let them go. As I was marveling at what had come, and all without my thinking, from my hands, I heard the king's breath slowing, deepening, his eyelids heavy, drooped, his eyes went blank. I crossed back to the valet at the door and signaled my success. As I ascended, footsteps on the stairs, I thought to keep that melody fixed in my mind until I got back to my room to write it down. But I needn't have worried. It kept playing in my head, repeating, keeping me from sleep, repeating on, far past the dawn.
Terrific. Yeah.
I love that you've got, the great dramatic monologue, you've got history, you've got this poignant soundtrack to someone's fading, to the king's fading, and you've got the melody that haunts, anyone who's ever composed a song, and suddenly being carried with them, and that's the first thing you worry about. Well, you forget it, and
Yeah,
when there was, wasn't you couldn't record it back then. You had to write it down.
Good,
yeah,
good. Yeah, that's a good point to make. Yeah, right there. Yeah, I'd agree. I really enjoy the last stanza in particular, or the idea that you're worried about not knowing what you had just discovered, because it, number one, I guess because it worked. Second, it was fresh, it was new, it was novel, something that was a sort of a impromptu creation, maybe out of necessity.
yeah,
And then in a passage of a few lines, you're saying, "Oh, maybe I don't have to worry about it because it's now fixed in my memory, and I'm not going to be able to forget it because it was such a strong uh, tune that
yeah, yeah.
just."
I wanted to. I began by being struck by the irony that something that you play that puts somebody to sleep ends up keeping you up.
Yeah, good for you. Yeah, yes.
And then I thought, well, this would be an interesting juxtaposition between power and art,
Mhm.
worldly power and artistic power.
Yeah.
And that, that the king has got the world, literally just outside his door, but he's at the mercy of this one guy's art, his skill.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
the guy with that power also pays a price, that he can't get to sleep because of who he is, because of what he's done.
Yeah.
And I think we've all had that. We've all woken up in the middle of the night and had to write something down because we knew we wouldn't remember, right?
It can be,
Yes.
yeah, it can be frantic thing to do. In other words, you feel like, yeah, you're going to kick yourself if you fall asleep, because it's going to be gone in the morning, right?
Yeah,
Got to keep that notebook by the bedside.
Yeah, right.
yeah. I mean, one of the I've had a couple of peculiar instances in which I was writing songs. I once wrote a song while undergoing an MRI.
Mhm.
You couldn't have your notebook with you then.
No, and plus there were these
Right.
clicks.
Right. Those sounds that go around and around it. Yeah.
The clicks. It was a full body MRI, and of course
Mhm.
it clicks at you, and it's arrhythmic.
Yeah.
The clicks are not in any tempo.
Hmm.
So I was trying to go so far in, and you can't move because you're in the MRI. I was trying to go so deep inside my head that not moving was immaterial to me, and I could block out everything I was hearing because what I was hearing inside was louder than what I was hearing outside.
Hmm.
And I was and then you're in the thing for 45 minutes. So
So you got plenty of
that
time to work on that. Yeah.
it was an interesting challenge, and but I was able to remember it when I went home, and it's not one of my better songs, but at least I was able to do it. Another time, I wrote a song while I was running. I was on a 4 mile run,
Mhm.
and I couldn't stop. I had to finish the run, and so I just kept
Mhm.
circling it in my head as I was running.
Yeah.
Beethoven and Brahms used to like to walk in the woods, and his footfall would establish the rhythm for what he was writing, and Beethoven did that too. And so it did kind of help that I was you know running along,
In motion. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
but it took me so damn long to run 4 miles. um, I had to keep circulating it over and over and over in my head because I was convinced that I would lose it if I stopped. And
Mhm.
then when I finished the run, I was in a gym. I had to get in my car and go, go home. And it's
Right.
still going in my head.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Keep the radio off, right, or something.
yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you
no,
don't want to have
Sure.
something else come up and send you down a different path, and you'll lose your own melody.
It's
The
true.
man from Porlock.
Yeah.
You know the man from Porlock?
No, I
No.
don't. No. No.
When Coleridge was writing Kubla Khan,
Oh.
okay?
Yeah.
Now, of course, this
Oh,
is
that's the guy
following.
that called and interrupted him.
Yes,
Yes.
the man from Porlock. He comes to the door. Coleridge is frantically trying to write this before he loses it. And he's like 2/3 of the way done with the poem. And there's a knock on the door, and it's a man from Porlock with some quotidian matter. And
Yeah.
then he gets rid of him as fast as he can, goes back, and he doesn't have it. He does the best he can, but he said, you know what I mean. He didn't have the freshness of the vision after the man from Portland.
That's why it's a vision, in a dream, a fragment, right? A fragment, I think, is what he calls it too,
Yes,
because he
exactly.
lost the rest.
Yeah, he felt it, but he couldn't pull it out.
Mm. Mm.
So that's too bad about that boy. That was
Mm.
I wish he hadn't been interrupted because I do like that poem. But what can one do? So anyway, that's I've never written any other poems about Lutenists in the court of Louis XIV. Is the description of the play? I mean, I'm not a Lutenist, so could you identify with that as a guitarist, Bob?
Definitely. I mean, I could. He also was a singer. I guess he was using the lute to accompany his singing voice.
Yes,
Yeah. So
yes.
yeah, I did. I was in the. I was interested to know about his trying these various tunes that had worked before, but for whatever reason were not working. And he was he started off with a saraband, I think, right?
Yeah,
And that's something that had worked in the past, but and then try these other things, which
he does the whole playlist. You know,
right,
the
yeah,
King's Insomniac playlist, and he gets all the way to the end of it and nothing. This is like an extreme example. It's
yeah,
nothing is working, and so it's interesting to me that it's at that point that the King says make something up.
mm. Well, yeah. Well, good for the king. Maybe the king should have got co-writing credits or something.
He could have sued him for for half the publishing, and of course, since
Yeah, I know.
they were his courts, he probably had a pretty good chance.
Yeah, yeah, right. Sure, justice was probably going to come down on his side. But
Wow.
I
Do
like
you
your
play
idea.
guitar, Ned? I know you work with different tracks and stuff. Do you play?
Yeah, I do play. I played guitar pretty well back in the day, and in recent years, as you know, I turned to the ukulele. But I have done a lot of recording where I've played guitar. You probably heard my old
Yeah.
electric Gibson on some of the Christmas songs I've used in recent years that I've recorded on Bandcamp. And so, yeah, I usually drag out the old electric guitar to sort of add some texture or some sort of echo, or and then occasionally a solo of some kind if it seems like there needs to be one. But for pleasure, I'm usually playing the ukulele most of the time. And part of that is also because my hands aren't what they were. I have a touch of arthritis and at least one finger that's pretty crippled. So holding a pick ends up being something that
Huh.
it's tougher than just finger picking, and I like finger picking on the ukulele better.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
a ukulele is an excellent instrument for accompaniment or solo work.
Yeah,
Or
I
working.
love it. I think I probably first became aware of its existence, probably first through Tiny Tim back when we were all kids. Uh,
Sure.
but later on, where I really paid attention to it is the sound of Paul McCartney strumming it on the song "Ram On the album Ram, which
Yeah.
is a beautiful sound when he strums it there. And I thought, what a beautiful sound it is. And I don't think I knew it was a ukulele till many years later. But I realized, oh, that's what that is, and it just is one of my favorite moments on one of my favorite post Beatles albums.
Yeah. There's a memorable jam when the Threedles got together to try to
Yeah,
work on Lennon's demos, where Harrison is playing a uke.
yeah. And Harrison's interest in ukulele was also what that was the immediate trigger for me getting a ukulele in the early
Nice.
2000s. Yeah, and I played it very regularly for more than 10 years and now I've sometimes slacked off, I regret to say. So I have to keep doing what you described earlier, getting back in shape and getting my blisters back in order
Yes.
uh, play.
You actually have blisters with a uke.
Oh yeah, because you have to hold the strings down, and time. I mean, if you just play occasionally, you're not going to get them or need them. But obviously, if you're going to play, with any frequency, you're going to soon find that, you either got to put up with the pain and get them, or you just put down the ukulele. Uh,
Well,
I think what I've been finding is that when I record, the music kind of doing everything else kind of takes me away from playing, which is not
yeah,
good. And when I
yeah,
was not recording and just playing for pleasure, it was really nice because I could get pretty good on the ukulele. I felt, well, you've seen me play, so you don't have to tell me, but I think it was at least okay.
yeah.
And,
I understand that, and also it's a different kind of mindset when you're working in production and arranging, and you're
yeah,
layering tracks, and it does take you away from your
yeah.
playing mind.
Yeah, and I'm trying to sing and harmonize and do all that stuff, and some of the layering works and some of it doesn't. And so, it's you get better, and every time you get better, you think, well, it's still not where I want it to be. So, you just keep trying.
Yeah, yeah. Don't stop doing that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
I knew both of you guys are musically accomplished, and so I thought it would be interesting. I couldn't get you in the same room exactly, but I got you in the same little flat space.
Same Zimmerman. Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah.